Hi, back in session with Professor P. We're moving on to Chapter 6, the first hominids and the emergence of Homo. You can follow along in your concept sheets or just listen. All right, let's start out with this chapter. It's a fun chapter, but it starts out with bipedality. Remember, bipedality is walking upright. We are a bipedal species. What favored bipedal locomotion? A lot of stuff. We wanted to free our hands. If we're walking upright, like just think about it, these are free. Why did we need these free? One of the most important things, to carry our young. That was one of them. To actually hold tools, right? We needed to free the hands. Bipedality was also adaptive for the tall trees, to see over trees in the savanna, to see from our vision. It was actually very adaptable for our vision. Bipedality was very important. It was important to harvest stuff. Natural selection wanted us to do this, right? That becomes very important to understanding. It also was very important for long distance travel. Imagine being a quadrupedal and you're on all fours. How far do you think you're going to get? Think about being back on campus at LMC and you have to sort of crawl to the library or crawl to the bathroom. It's going to take us forever to do that stuff. So that becomes important to sort of understand. It was really favored by that natural selection. However, there were costs to bipedal. We have this entire body standing on two little feet, right? A lot of you might be athletes. You guys might have a lot of knee problems and foot issues and feet problems because bipedal, there's stresses on the lower body that we put on from bipedality, right? But in the end, we know it was actually, there's more pros of being bipedal than there are cons. All right, let's get to the Australopithecines and Australopithecus. It's pronounced both ways, just so you know. There's 6 species of Australopithecines, and they're divided into the gracile and the robust group. So you have 6 species, 2 groups. And basically what you really should just know about it is the first group, if we're looking at the first group of gracile, they're not as robustus as the second group. Robustus is like sort of muscle mass, things like that. The very important one, we have Anamensis, Afarensis, and Africanus. Those are part of the gracile groups, okay? Afarensis becomes very important to us because Afarensis diverged into our group. So Afarensis, they believe, was very similar to a small human. The brain size was about 400 cc's, like the size of a small orange. There was a difference. It's called sexual dimorphism. There was a physical difference between males and females. We're sexually dimorphic. So that becomes important to understand. But one of the most famous Afarensis is Lucy. And there's a lot of documentaries on Lucy. And Lucy, like I said, was found in Tanzania by Donald Johanson. And it becomes important to understand Lucy was about 65 pounds, 3 feet tall. A male would have been about 90 pounds, 5 feet tall. So I was just a little bit taller than the males. So, I'm really short, which is funny. So anyways, moving on to the last 3 groups, right? They're all robust. And basically what you need to know about them is that they just have a little bit more muscle mass. There's not really a lot to know with that other group. So turn over your page and let's get to Homo erectus. Once we start with the Homo, we're talking about our species. Anything with Homo, whether it's Homo habilis, Homo erectus, we are Homo sapiens sapiens, right? There's a lot of things with Homo. What we understand is we not only have big brains, we're one of the first stone tool makers. Non-human primates will get a twig and use it, right? But they don't actually use a tool to make another tool. That's uniquely human, all right? That's what's really cool about it. That was equated with the expansion of our brains, culture, and the passing on of culture. Remember, culture's learned behaviors. It's learned values that we acquire throughout our lifetime, and culture can change. Stone tools are literally equated to the emergence of culture. We passed on tool making. Our children used it. It was educational. It was a shared idea, right? We are social beings. That was what stone tools were related with culture. So let's get into some of the earliest stone tool making about 2.5 million years ago. Percussion flaking. Percussion flaking is a technique of tool making where you strike one stone with another and you remove flakes. So you get 2 stones and you sort of strike them and then you remove a flake. That's percussion flaking. All right, the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, the Oldiwan tools were very important, found by Lewis and Mary Leakey, some very sort of famous archaeologists. found a whole sort of bed they called bed one, where they found a lot of flake tools that were dominating. They found what was called choppers and scrapers. Choppers was partially flaked and one side was used for chopping, right? Scrapers was flaking along one side and flat along another. A unifacial tool is just that. A tool worked on one side. Bifacial, a tool worked on both sides. So that becomes very important to sort of understand. Microscopic analysis is a term we use where we examine and analyze the wear and the use wear of a tool, and we look at the scratches to tell us what it could have been used for. It's sort of similar to use wear analysis. Microscopic analysis is looking at cutting meat, cutting wood, cutting plants, right? Looking at the wear and tear of the tool, not just the edges, but the actual wear and tear of the entire tool. That becomes important. All right. Expansion of the brain. We have a very large brain, one of the largest brains. And it's not just the large brain, it's the configuration and it's the structure of the brain, the left and the right side of the brain. Our brains began to become very large about 2.3 million years ago, and our brain size 2 million years ago doubled. What favored the increase in brain size? It was linked to the emergence of tools. Natural selection favored it to enable these kinds of tradition. We needed it for warfare, for hunting, to live a longer life, for language, right? For infant dependency, right? We stay with our children a very long time. They stay with us a long time. We needed that to rear our children and to enculturate our children, right? That becomes very important. Let's start with one of our first genuses, Homo habilis. Homo habilis lived about 2.3 million years ago. The brain size was about between 630 and 640 cc's in the brain. They were partially arboreal, which means going up maybe in the trees for maybe protection, shelter. They were sexually dimorphic. You can actually see the physical differences between a male and a female within that Homo habilis. All right, Homo rudolfensis was about 2.5 million years ago. Bigger brain size, just like us. But the most significant was Homo erectus. Homo erectus was about between 1.8 and 1.6 million years ago. Homo erectus is very important. It literally means erect ape man. And what's very important about Homo erectus is the brain size is now between 895 and 1040 cc's. Now imagine we're 1300 cc's, so very close to us. Sexually dimorphic. Homo erectus was also robustus as well. Homo erectus was known for a lot of things, all right? Living in caves, living along waterways, living in family hordes, having culture, passing on culture. They were known specifically for what's called the Acheulean tool tradition, which was a hand axe. So now, in the beginning, some millions of years ago, we're doing stone tools like this. Oh, we got some stones and we're making tools. Now Homo erectus is smart enough to go, I got a stick and I'm going to put a blade on it. Now we're talking about advancement in tool making with the Acheulean tool tradition. Also known for fire. Either the debate is, did they just control fire because fires were sort of going around, or were they able to start it? Or were they able to start it and then utilize it? But that was very significant. We are now talking about Acheulean tool and associated with fire. And with that, once we start to use fire, people, things start to change for us. Think about not having fire. Fire is going to keep us warm. Fire is going to make us cook food. So now we don't need this big chewing apparatus. Our face and our body starts to shrink on multiple levels, right? That's why we look the way we do today, and we don't need that big jaw, right? We don't need the big apparatus anymore because we could cook meat. It's going to be easier for us to chew. It lightens up the day too. With fire, they could do fire and line drives, which means they could now scare animals and hunt in a different way. Lots of things, people, happen with fire, even providing us warmth and light. All right, I hope you enjoyed that chapter. Stay tuned for the next chapter. Stay safe and healthy. Out, Professor P.